inspired to push through. Because there's a spark in you. Breakthrough or bust.
Hello, welcome to Breakthrough or Bust. I am so happy that you are here, and I am so happy to have Dr. Barnsley Brown here with us today. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Kaluwa?
I'm wonderful. Barnsley, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I am from North Carolina. Actually, I'm a native North Carolinian and grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and have lived in various places across the world, Kaluwa, but came back to North Carolina in 1989 to do my PhD at UNC Chapel Hill. And I just stayed in Chapel Hill pretty much from then on. Even when I was teaching at Wake Forest University in Winston, I had a little place in Winston and I would come back and forth.
Wow.
I just feel like a Chapel Hillian
Yes.
at heart.
This is your place.
It's my place.
Yeah.
You know, and I realized actually that when I was coming from Scotland, I had done my master's degree at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And when I came back, I thought I was coming back to do my PhD, but I would tell you, Kaluwa, actually, I think I was coming back to do my PhD in healing work.
Yeah.
Because I started meeting all sorts of interesting people in this area who do forms of healing, mental, physical, emotional healing. And I started this, fascination with that. So it was really interesting that I came here thinking, oh, okay, this is the right school for me, which I think it was. But I ended up having the other school, which was the school of taking Reiki, of taking healing touch, of studying rebirthing, of studying thought field therapy, of studying dowsing, of studying all sorts of alternative health modalities or integrative health modalities, however you choose to see them. And my life was so enriched by that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah, you're definitely speaking my language.
Yeah.
It's all the good stuff.
Right. And it comes into our lives. What I find is when we put a call out into the universe for help, right? And sometimes that is the most guttural call, right? Sometimes it's just, help. When we put a call out for help, it's amazing what begins to happen. But it seems like we need to put that call out.
Oh, absolutely. You've got that spirit team that's with you, but
yeah,
there's it's almost like a strong code of ethics. They can't do anything until you ask.
Right. And even if they did, I actually do believe they're at work around us all the time. And actually, one of my mastermind coaching clients just said the most wonderful thing. She said, when it seems like the divine is quiet, it's just that God isn't whistling while he works.
Yeah.
Right. And I see God as beyond he, but that's a different discussion. But think about that. That's when the divine is not whistling while working. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. I love it. Well,
doesn't mean nothing's going on.
No. Oh, goodness, never.
Doesn't mean
sometimes it means you're too distracted to even see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have these blinders. We have so many blinders on, that have been placed on us for years and years from society.
Yes.
The way things are.
Yes.
Like you have to work 40 hours a week.
Yes.
Or as a woman, you have to be a great mom to your kids and run the household and work. And, we just have a bunch of scripts. Not just in
this lifetime, but like from generations back. It goes just passed down over and over and over again to the point where it's like it doesn't even make sense in this lifetime. But because it's been passed down for so long, it's just, well, that's how everybody does it.
Right. Well, I like to question all well, that's how everybody does it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And I'm wondering if we'll get some of that in your story.
I bet we will. I bet we will. Actually, as we talk about this sort of the that's how it's always been done, I think that is a pretty clear clue when that's being said, that it's time to question.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've talked about that, with my own story as a kid. And I was always asking, that doesn't make any sense. Why? Why would people do that? And just be quiet, Kaluwa. It's just how it's done. And just, follow suit. And for so long, I made myself wrong because everybody else is doing, they must all be right. Like, how could it be that just one little girl, would, but that's the case. Sometimes it's that one little girl.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
genius comes from the margins.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. Genius always is on the margins, because think about it. Innovation has to be something that before didn't exist, or people didn't realize exists. So it can't be like, if this is our status quo right here, genius cannot exist within the status quo. It has to always come from the margins. And I think when I look at my life, actually, there is just so many margins that I hung out in, and I still do. They don't feel like margins to me. They feel like the place of creativity and abundance. But when I talk to someone who's more conventional, then I realize, oh yeah, I am out at the margins, aren't I?
Those
like,
conversations are always funny, don't they? Snap you back like, oh my.
I'm a little more out there than I thought.
I think that's why it's so important to be open to listening to people. Some people just see things differently.
Yes.
And actually this particular week, that was a big message, was that beginner's mind. And so, just having that beginner's mind and listening to other points of view and different people, and they don't have to immediately, even if you don't agree with it, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just a different point of view.
Right. And I was actually always obsessed with that in my studies, in my academic studies, in terms of how it showed up in novels and polyvocality, right? That there would be multiple voices in a novel, a Toni Morrison novel, or a Faulkner novel, or, I just always loved polyvocality, or Virginia Woolf's point of view, that the points of view that shift in her novels. And that just always fascinated me. And I realize now it's really about a fundamental theme in my life, Kaluwa, which is finding my voice. All right. And I know this is breakthrough or bust, right? Is that right? Breakthrough or bust. Woohoo! So I can say that finding my voice has been huge in my life. When I was a kid, you mentioned the little girl you were, but when I was a kid, I was growing up in a very dysfunctional family with a bipolar father and a mother who was often raging, because she had 3 children, not just me and my brother, but she had my dad, who acted like a child, and was usually passed out, taking whatever he could get his hands on in the
self-medicating.
Self-medicating. Absolutely. He was self-medicating. And he was also closet gay, it appears. And so, think about that whole situation. I got in touch with this in a seminar one time, where I just found myself crying for both of them, because here was my mother wanting a husband who would desire her, and still she feels like he was the love of her life. She said that when he died a few years ago, even though they'd been divorced for years and years. And then there was my father, who couldn't be himself and had to disappear and run off to have some experiences that were part of who he was. And he was shamed for that, right? For disappearing from his family. And, he had mental illness on top of it. So I just thought about the dynamic of that relationship, and it just made me so sad. But the good news is, even though it was a horrible divorce, they did they did when I was about 12, they did split, and that was extremely traumatic because my brother stayed with my father and I went with my mother. And then they were just awful to each other. I mean, it was like World War, III right there. But as a child, I was very quiet, Kaluwa, and people find that hard to imagine now, but I was extremely quiet. I really was. And I kept my nose buried in a book. I would read like a book every night. I read all the Reader Digest classics. I would just immediately, when there was a new Nancy Drew, I'd get it and I'd read. That was my escape. And I was an excellent student, but I was so quiet. I did not have a voice. And I had a voice, let's just put it this way, but I did not exercise that voice. And I just remember now when I think about that, there was a conscious moment when I was about 13 that I decided on Valentine's Day to write a poem. And I wrote it out and I folded it up and gave it to different friends. And I'm sure somewhere I have that poem. It was really bad poem, but not at all like my poetry mentor. I have published a lot of my poetry, but
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, but this was just something I was expressing. And
well, you walk before you run.
Exactly, right. And the whole idea was, the intent was for other people to feel loved, right? And when I was 16, I remember making a conscious decision. And that was the moment that everything shifted, because I made a conscious decision, Kaluwa, that I would be happy. That was a decision I remember making. I was 16 years old. All the things that had happened before, ways that I felt I was excluded because I had a lot of allergies, because I was always taller, because at one point I was heavier. I wasn't athletic. I was always one of the last to be chosen on the team, because I was super smart, and that made me different too. And I was a geek, right? I was a nerd and kept myself buried in a book, which I still love to do, by the way. I'm still completely a nerd and love myself for that.
But now it's cool. There's like this whole geek chic thing now.
Geek chic. I love that. I am geek chic.
Yeah.
But that moment, that 16-year-old moment of choosing to be happy was huge.
That is amazing at that age too.
Right.
When you think back to 16, most of us were like still in that turmoil and figuring it all out. And in my case, I started the opposite. I was very loquacious. I really spoke my mind. And it was just that constant like beating down of, please stop. We don't want to hear you, and until finally the message did sink in.
You're being obnoxious.
Yeah. Right? Stop speaking your mind. Nobody wants to hear it.
You're making me think about a moment that I feel like I should share. So this, I think, will mean something to your listeners. I remember, so that's when things began to shift at 16, and I began to do theater. I became popular in an unusual way, in that I knew everyone and everyone knew me because of theater and singing, and I was great at that. I had a small circle of friends that were really dear friends, and I became popular, but in an unusual way. I wasn't with just one clique in high school. I knew different people. And I would say that the people who knew me were very few, but everybody thought they knew me. Right. I was one of those people that,
because I was going to hit on that a little bit too. You say that you did theater, and oftentimes people think, oh, you're so outgoing if you do theater, but actually theater is somebody else's voice. It's you portraying someone else's voice. And there are so many shy people that gravitate towards theater.
Right. Absolutely. And it is about learning. It's about taking your voice and applying it to someone else's. But it is actually, what you just said is actually the reason why, when I was in college, I finally made a decision at a very critical moment in college. This is reminding me of that I didn't want to be in another role as a chorus or whatever. I had played leads, or I had played really good parts, but I didn't want to be in the chorus anymore, that I wanted to write. And I made a decision that I would write. And I remember telling my wonderful British theater mentor, James Dodding, who recently passed, and we all got together. It was so cool to see everyone on Zoom. But I remember going to his office and telling him with, tears in my eyes, I'm not going to accept the role. I'm going to write. And so that's when I focused more on my poetry and also writing some for the school newspaper, but especially my poetry, and won some awards, and actually sent some poetry out and got a rejection slip that was handwritten on from the New Yorker, which was a great thing. But I didn't know Kaluwa. I didn't know at the time, oh, wow, that's a great thing. You should keep sending. And I didn't know, so I didn't keep sending. But the whole point of it all, what I'm trying to say is that I made that choice to write and to use my voice that way in college. And even though I did some theater in graduate school, and even though I studied Black women's drama, even though I studied that from a literary critical point of view, I didn't do much drama after that. I chose to write. And finding my voice, I would say, has been about calling out things that happened when I was a child. There was some sexual abuse. There was a lot of emotional abuse. And I'm actually writing a book, Kaluwa. I think I might have mentioned that to you when we talked before. I'm writing a book about this, about my journey from victim to victor, and how that came about, and how I created that. And I really have consciously created it. But it all started with the decision to be happy. And this is what I feel like I want to say, first of all, to your listeners, is that it is a decision. Happiness does not have to be, it is not contingent upon the perfect circumstances, because those will never, ever exist. Happiness is a deliberate choice. It is a deliberate choice that no matter what's going on, no matter what hard things are happening in my life, no matter what struggles the people I love are going through, that I choose to be happy. I choose to experience some joy today, no matter what, no matter what. And that phrase has been very important to me in my life, the phrase, no matter what.
So once again, I love the divine timing of things, because today the message that came up was for, there's those of us who have had the tougher run, right? Like some people kind of coast, and some people have a tougher run of things. And it was about them being the pearls, right? And that, when a speck of dust gets into the shell, they create that pearl around it. And exactly what you're saying, yes, you may have had some tough stuff happening in your life, but then you get to choose. You get to either, sit in the misery of it and dwell on that, or you get to make a pearl out of it.
And we choose how long we sit in the misery, actually. And I was just talking to my mastermind. We just had our power hour. I have a 12-month coaching mastermind called the Make It Happen Coaching Mastermind. And we just had a power hour. We have 8 a month. And I was saying to everyone, we all have weeds in our lives. Every single one of us has weeds. Every single person. And you say, maybe people have had a easier run of it. I don't know about that. I think they're just majorly in denial, but
maybe.
But a lot of them are in denial, because there were probably forms of emotional neglect, et cetera, that they didn't even know about, and so never recognized it. But it impacted their lives and continues to impact their lives. But we all, where was I? I lost my train of thought.
You were saying in the
weeds.
power hour?
Yeah, we all have weeds. We've all got weeds. And the thing is, we choose how long we'll sit in the weeds, and we choose if we're going to let the weeds grow up like bamboo. And when it becomes bamboo, it's really hard to get rid of. Oh, yeah. Right? Bamboo is daggone resilient, right?
It is in there.
It's in there, and you are going to spend so much more time trying to get rid of it when it gets to that point. So we all have weeds, and the question becomes, well, how long do I stay here in the weeds, bemoaning my fate?
Because you want to heal it. You want to feel it to heal it, right? But you don't want to sit there so long where it becomes weeded in like that. Yeah.
Right. We need to feel it. We need to release it. We just did an exercise, a writing exercise today in Power Hour, and then shared bits of it and created action steps from the things that people were feeling frustrated by, that they were grieving, and also that they were grateful for. And what I find is that the weeds are they're our guidance system, really. They provide that contrast so we can figure out what's really important to us. So
Yes.
the weeds are extraneous, we all know from gardening that when you pull the weeds out, it allows everything else to bloom better, to blossom, to grow. And so we do need to excise them if we want to grow.
Yes.
But we do need also to wallow in them, to feel them, to acknowledge them, to identify what the weeds are. For me, some of the weeds were growing up in that alcoholic home and the abuse, and also having a series of relationships with men who, in one shape or another, couldn't be there for me because that was what I knew. That's what I knew from my father, right? He was very, very absent. Even when his body was there, he was absent.
Sure. He was working through his stuff.
And then he was absent sometimes. I mean, he actually would disappear and we didn't know where he was for weeks on end.
Wow.
So having that experience, has definitely changed me and definitely impacted who I chose in relationships, for instance. And it does, those weeds are going to impact us. We're going to gravitate to things we know.
Yes.
So even if it's poison ivy.
Exactly. Yes. And it's just so funny. We'll sit in our own toxicity because we know how to handle that rather than take that step. And that fear comes in. It's like, well, I don't know how to handle that, even if it is healthier and better. And I don't know how to navigate it yet.
Right. And the only way is to begin to navigate it, just to begin, and to step out, and break it into tiny chunks. Yes. So it might be a phone call to get into a therapy group. It might be a call to find out about a Reiki training. I have a Reiki level 1 coming up, and that's just a really awesome way to release all that crap in your head and your body, right?
Yes.
Just release it in a weekend, very quickly, with a lot of joy and a lot of tears. It's a very supportive, amazing, safe place for that. But we all have the weeds. And so the question is, how long do we stick with them and let ourselves be there before we ask the question, now what? Now what? What's next? What's next? And when we begin to ask that question, now what, those questions, now what and what's next, then we can formulate some little baby steps to take. And I mean, they may have to be the babiest of the babiest steps. Tiny little steps. Right? Just even writing down what's driving us so crazy or upsetting us so much, or going to a 12-step group for support. Definitely Al-Anon and Alateen were very important. And I can share that. I obviously wouldn't share somebody else's struggle there because I can't. We keep it anonymous. We keep the program anonymous, but I can share that I have benefited greatly from Al-Anon and Alateen, and also Adult Children of Alcoholics. These are amazing programs. Now that's ACOA is now called ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, but it used to be called ACOA. So those have all been really important in my journey to learning, what are some of the common, they call it the laundry list in ACA, the common characteristics that you have when you grow up in any sort of dysfunction. And then learning how to work with those. So we can make a different choice. And so, for example, right now, it's been a while since I've been in a relationship, and I made a very conscious choice not to enter a relationship right now. Just not to enter another relationship. Let's put it that way, but to enter into a relationship with myself.
Yes. And it's funny because I'm mirroring a lot of what you say. Growing up in that dysfunctional family, I chose you know, repeatedly the toxic relationship.
Yeah.
You know, they say that girls marry their dads, and you know, that's what happens. And so yeah, that was what I did too. I stepped back and I said, I'm going to heal me. This is a pattern. And if it's a pattern, I need to take responsibility.
Right.
And so I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to love me to death. I'm going to heal me. I'm going to, you know, get rid of all of the beliefs and the beliefs that lead to the behaviors.
Right.
That continue to replicate this.
Like, I'm not worth standing by, for instance, or I'll always be abandoned, or
Yes.
I'm unlovable,
or just not
or
worthy.
No one wants me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not important. I don't matter. There's so many versions of this, and these scarcity conversations, they are scarcity conversations. I talk a lot with my coaching clients about these, and we identify and work with them, because those scarcity conversations are going to affect our businesses. They're going to affect all our relationships, the relationship we have with ourselves, the relationship we have with the higher power, however we define that,
with our
the relationships
friends,
with our children, our friends, are all going to be impacted by that.
It's funny too, you know, how you're talking about with your voice too, because as I had mentioned, that was my thing, was everybody slowly wearing me down, like about how we don't want to hear from you. And I did end up ultimately in a marriage where that was like the main thing. Like, don't tell people, like, don't talk, don't, like, you know, what are you saying every time I'm on the phone? What are you saying? You know, and it's like, right. And so this like complete control over all of my communications. And that's not a coincidence.
Right.
That's not a coincidence. I chose that.
It's what you knew.
That's what I knew.
So without blaming yourself.
Some of that sitting in the weeds, right?
It's what you learned from a very young age, and it got straight in, because we don't have filters up until about age 6, 7.
Yeah.
So you just saw it modeled, and that became your comfort zone.
Yeah.
No blame whatsoever about that.
Yeah.
But then as you grew, you realized, you know, oh, this is not working for me. You know, there's a part of me that wants to express. And I've found recently, for example, Kaluwa, I've been doing a lot of art. And I also do improv comedy, which is always so much fun. But I've been doing some physical art. And right now I'm painting some pieces for the Independent Animal Rescue auction. I did this last year for the first time. I painted 3 pieces and they went really well. They auctioned pretty high. And I was so excited because I'd never done hand painted furniture. You know,
so yet another way of sharing your voice too.
Exactly. Exactly. And making, you know, jewelry. I have on some things some beaded things that I did. But yes, we've got to find the way our soul wants to express.
Yes.
And, you know, that is also the key to happiness and joy. It was one of the biggest things when I was 16, was that becoming part of the theater and part of the different choirs at school and part of the yearbook and part of the poetry magazine, you know, it was finding a voice, different ways, as you point out, to find your voice. And so I would say to everyone, as you're listening, think about, you know, what in me is seeking to be expressed. What within me is seeking to be expressed?
Yes. One more time for those in the back.
Within me is seeking to be expressed.
Love it.
And to sit with that question and maybe even journal a little bit on it, because your soul knows, right? And your soul will guide you to those activities and people and experiences that are in alignment with what your soul is desiring to express.
That's it. And that's what I always say, your desires are your purpose. And it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, yes, there's the entrepreneurs, the change maker entrepreneurs, right? Where we make it our profitable passion to go out and heal the world. But it doesn't mean that's the only way. Sometimes it is through the hobbies and the people that you touch while you're pursuing those hobbies, or, you know, the activities that you're doing and how it affects your community or your family, or, there's just so many different ways. But if you desire it, if you desire to, I don't know, I think mine must be salsa dancing, because this has come up quite a few times like the last week. But right in my head, I hear salsa dance, right? If you have this desire to go learn how to salsa dance, go learn how to salsa dance. And that's just going to make you attractive to everything that you desire, because it's going to raise your vibration. Yeah.
The universe responds to happiness.
Yes.
All right. And the universe also responds to shitstorm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to say, have you been in a situation where it just seems like suddenly you have a veritable shitstorm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're focusing on everything that's going wrong. And then more keeps coming that's going wrong, and more keeps coming that's going wrong.
Yeah, that expression, when it rains, it pours, because where is your focus?
Exactly.
On the
what
rain.
we focus on increases. This is one of those fundamental truths.
Yes.
It's something that I focus on in my Reiki level 1 training with people. What we focus on increases. And so while we want to stay in the weeds for a while and say, oh, this is so bad, and so, we bond with people by complaining sometimes, then the question is, well, all right, do I want to focus on these weeds, or do I want to focus on what I want to grow here? Mm-hmm. And when we focus on what we want to grow, then we actually energize that. Mm-hmm. And those opportunities begin to come. But happiness, feeling happy, feeling good, is one of the most important things that we could ever do to attract what we need in our businesses and our lives.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we have control over that. Where your focus goes, there your energy flows.
Yes.
Where your focus goes, there your energy flows. And do you really want it flowing into all the crap? Or do you want it flowing into who you are becoming?
Yes.
Who are you becoming?
And that's where I think a lot of people, where they get the imposter syndrome, and they feel inauthentic because they don't fully believe yet the positive message. And I think it was an Abraham Hicks message where it was like recalibrating,
yes.
the constant little recalibrations. So maybe I think I'm totally unworthy and nobody's going to love me. Well, but I also know that, I do a lot of good at, and so you're constantly recalibrating and just changing the message little by little by little until it feels more and more in alignment for you.
I love that. And linguistically, we can do that. So maybe you would say, I'm prosperous and free. And you're like, no, I'm not. When you say that, I'm prosperous and free and happy and healthy. And you're like, no, I'm not. So then what you can do is you can say, I am becoming, I am in the process of becoming prosperous and free, happy and healthy. I am in the process of becoming. Yes. Is a very powerful way to do it, because your mind will then say, okay, yes, I can get that. I am in the process of becoming.
Yes. I love it.
This is making me think of an exercise I just gave my mastermind coaching clients, and that is a future self exercise in which they were to say, the future self I am becoming is, and then focus on all the qualities: bold, brave, strong, 100% committed, abundant, free, inspiring, et cetera, et cetera. And so they actually wrote out the future self I am becoming is, and we did a pre-exercise to figure out some of the words that meant the most to them that they could include in that description of the future self. And it's important because if we're focusing on our future self, then we are moving towards that.
Yeah, that's powerful, because once you've identified that person, now you can always say, how would that person react? How would that person choose? How would that person behave? And you're constantly shifting into that consciousness.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of what I call, how would big Kaluwa act?
Yeah.
Or how would big Barnsley act? It's like another version. What would Jesus do? Well, what would the higher self within you do?
Yes.
What would the big you do? Not the whiny, victim-y,
Inner
snotty
child.
nosed little, Debbie Downer within you. We all have one of those.
Yes.
I don't want to talk to that person. I'll say this to people, actually, Kaluwa, sometimes when I'm having an enrollment conversation with someone and they're all in their crap, I'll be like, I don't want to talk to the whiny little you. I want to talk to the big you.
Wow.
The big you.
I love it.
Yeah. And it's made a couple of people mad, but one person, and that's okay. I'm okay with making somebody mad because I want to speak the truth.
Yes.
And not just a convenient lie.
Your purpose is not to coddle people. It's to challenge them. That's what a coach does.
Well, I do coddle too in a way, but
nurture. I would say nurture.
But I would say my clients will probably say, no, she doesn't coddle at all. but I feel like I do. It was interesting when my daughter was really little. She's 15 now. But when she was a toddler and learning to walk, she would fall over. And I would be like, is there any blood? Oh, you're good. Keep going. Whereas my ex-husband would be like, oh my God, you let her fall over. And then I go and pick her up and all this. And that's not the way we learn to walk. Yeah. We learn to walk by falling and getting back up, falling and getting back up. And it's
important to make mistakes.
Strong, right? That she knows, well, if there's blood, then you come and get mom. If not, I can get back up. And the funny thing was, she still remembers that now. And I literally would close the door when she got a little bit older. And I would close the door to my office and I would be like, if there's blood, you can come knock. If not, don't. Okay, I've got to do some work. And she would abide by that. That's but the great. Point is, we don't just, if we're coddled all the time, basically that's keeping someone in comfort zone or keeping yourself in
exactly, and you don't grow.
And there's no growth there. That's all status quo for you. That's what you already know.
That's it. And so if you're listening here now, this is why we do this show, right? Because that discomfort, that breakdown before the breakthrough is where you want to give up, but don't, because that's you growing.
And the breakdown can remain a breakdown if you choose that.
Yes.
But if you choose to find the breakthrough, you will find it. You will find the breakthrough. And what I found is oftentimes the breakthrough is about owning and claiming our power and our voice at a whole nother level. Owning and claiming our power and our voice at a whole nother level that we could never even perhaps dream of before.
Yes. And I love to say, why am I grateful for this? Like, it could be the biggest crap storm going on.
Yes.
What am I grateful about this? Right. And if you can take some of your most traumatic things and have gratitude for them, for sometimes in the moment, well, most of the time in the moment, it's it's a little tough to be grateful. But if you can, on the other side of it, find something to be grateful for. Like, if it didn't get this bad, I never would have healed to this level. I never would have transformed myself the way I have. Never. I would have kept repeating the patterns over and over and over again and just it had to be bad for me to wake up. And so then I get grateful.
And there you go. And I feel like I should share this, that a big part of finding my voice in my life was after my PhD, I went to teach I taught at UNC while I was doing my PhD, Chapel Hill. And I also taught at Wake Forest University. I taught at Duke for a summer. And I was interviewing for various, and I went back to teach at Wake Forest in a visiting assistant professorship. And I was still interviewing for various tenure track jobs. But by the time I got the offer that before would have been my, the best offer I could ever think about, wow, by that time I had just seen such an abuse of power. And I had seen the voices of so many women in the canon, not in the canon, like not being included in the courses I wanted to teach. And I had been chided for having a lot of women writers in my American literature course, for example. And also seeing the voices of women in the institution silenced, that I just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to kiss butts to get tenure. I don't want to have myself squelched. I don't want to fight in this system. And I made a decision on the very same day that a guy came back and stood at my front door saying, oh, I made a mistake, I'd like another try. And I said no to both. No to the tenure track position. No to the guy. Same day, I kid you not.
Wow.
August 2000.
And you know what I love about that so much is that, you were applying. And a lot of times we get impatient, guilty, right? We get impatient.
Yeah.
This is what I want. Why don't I have it? Well, because it's not for you.
Exactly.
Not like this. This is part of the growth. This is part of the journey. You're learning something about yourself by doing this, but this isn't the end all be all.
It isn't the end all be all. And so basically after that within a month, I had registered the name of my business, Spirited Solutions, Professional Speaking and Coaching. And I started on September 11th, 2000, a year before the towers came down.
Wow.
And I started with $1,000, and I say a lot of boobs, not a lot of balls, because that didn't apply to me. That's how I started, $1,000 and no side income, no, it was just me and
that is a lot of boobs.
four mouths to feed. And people are like, you had all of those kids? I said, no, they were rescue animals. I had 2 dogs and 2 cats that were rescue animals, but they were hungry. Yeah. So that's how I began. And that's how my business evolved. Now I've been in business 22 years, but basically now in helping women entrepreneurs who are big-hearted and want to have more impact, and they're feeling stuck, they're feeling unsupported, they don't know what to do next. Well, I help them double, triple, quadruple, or more their income and their impact in the world. And that's in my coaching program. And we do it fast with fun. And the reason I do the work that I do with that, and also Reiki, which releases the negativity in the mind, the reason I do this work is because when I started my business 22 years ago, I, as I am now, was the person I needed then and didn't have. Yeah. So I learned things the long, hard way. I learned the trial and error way, with probably more focus on error.
Yeah.
Right? The pearl, diamonds are formed through pressure. Yes. Diamonds are formed through pressure. Yep. I experienced that over and over and over again. But when I got really clear, I said, oh my God, I've become the person that I needed then. And if I had had me in the first few years of my business would have become 6-figure way before that. I would have helped so many more people, but we can't live in, that was, that was the way it should have been.
That was part of your journey.
It was part of my journey. And now the journey comes to sharing everything that I've learned with other.
Yes. And now you're able to do so much more because you did it that way.
Yeah. And because I know the pitfalls, I know where the grenades are. I know where the, hidden traps are. Yes. I know where the landmines are. And so I'm able to help women in their first, say, just beginning to say 5 years of business, to really avoid all those landmines and to avoid their blind spots, right? And there's a reason we call them blind spots. Yeah. Because we can't see them. Yes. And it's the reason why, Kaluwa, I know you do a lot of coaching work as well. It's the reason I have 7 coaches. I have 7 coaches. Yes.
I say that all the time. I mean, yes, I have a spiritual team, but I also have a human team.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And thank God for them, because they're able to just, diagnose what I can't see it, but I can talk about it, and they're able to give me ideas, and then I'm able to deal with it.
It's so amazing. I say that all the time. For me, I'm working with somebody and I could see everything so clearly. It's crystal 2020. And me, I'm like, what's going on? And
because that other person live with you the whole time, right?
Yeah.
When we're intuitive too, the thing is that we live with ourselves 24 hours a day. Yes. And so, we can't have that objective view. Really, anybody who's intuitive will say, if you want to know about yourself, go to another intuitive, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because you can't pull it out of yourself, because we live with it, right? but we can see it for other people.
Yes.
And the reason we're able to spot something, you've heard that adage, if you can spot it, you've got it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can spot it, you've got it. Well, I think that's just so perfect, because I'm able to help women spot those blind spots because I had it, right? I've had it in my life. I've had those, and I had to figure out the way to overcome them.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's just occurring to me, a lot of times we have those blind spots because we don't even realize how much we're capable of, like how big we really are, where somebody else can look and say, whoa, this is what you can do. Like, you are amazing. They're like, no, 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 no. Yes, 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 yes. Right.
And we all
you
need
have
to hear
almost
that.
open them up to how big and amazing and strong and powerful and how much their voice is needed and all of it. Yeah.
You're making me think about a dear friend of mine, and we do trades on each other. And she said, you're a superstar, Barnsley. And I said, really? And she's like, yeah, you're a superstar. But I would not call myself that. And since she said that, I thought about it so many times. I'm a superstar. I'm a superstar. Wow, I'm a superstar.
Yeah.
We need to hear it from other people.
Absolutely.
And I don't care what degree of success someone has, I really don't. I don't care what you've got in the bank and what your level of success is according to your own terms, right?
Yeah.
But we all need to hear that positive recognition.
Yes.
Of who we are, and
Absolutely.
not the naysayers.
Sometimes it's just a matter of you being that person willing to do the healing, because as we know, you have to get really uncomfortable to do that. And that's one of the things I tell people is that's worth celebrating. I know you feel ooky right now. That's my very scientific word, ooky. And I know that it feels crappy and just walk, and that's why you've got to celebrate that you're strong enough to walk into that and do it and do the work to get you to that next level.
And that stuff the ooky stuff wouldn't be coming up unless you were at a point where you could handle it.
Yes.
The universe never gives us more than we can handle. And I like to remind myself of that when I have a moment of like, the oh shit moment.
I must be getting really strong right now.
It's like, whoa, wow, I'm really indomitable. I am a superstar because this stuff is happening. But so many people will Kaluwa, when something happens, like they're going after their passionate, purposeful, profitable business, and then they hit some obstacles. A lot of people would just back up and say, oh, well, it's not meant to be. I'm encountering this resistance. And I like to say,
I used to do that.
Right. I like to say, well, that resistance is there as confirmation that you're breaking through your comfort zone and keep going. Because I would be concerned if you didn't have any resistance, because basically you're no longer following the scripts that were handed down to you from society, from your culture, from your parents, from education, and you're going after your real vocation or your real avocation. Vocation comes from the word vocare, which is calling. You're going after your real calling. And I would worry if you didn't have any resistance, because that would mean you were still somehow managing to stay in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Resistance is a good sign.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you say that, because yes, I spent so many years thinking that was the case. Oh, as soon as you hit a wall, uh-oh. And that was, my big thing with this. It's like, oh, wait, no, everybody hits those walls. We're supposed to keep pushing, keep pushing.
Yes. And sometimes it's just not so much about pushing. And this is coming from an Aries and someone who does push. And one thing I'm learning is sometimes it's really about stepping back and allowing.
Yes.
Stepping back and allowing, and just holding that commitment to what you're creating, holding the commitment, but stepping back and allowing instead of trying to push. And it's amazing when we step back and allow, so often the way is made for us.
Yes.
Something opens up. Someone calls.
The path unfolds.
The path unfolds.
I do love that. And when I say pushing, I think I know I mean in lieu of giving up.
Right. Yes. Yes. Right. Having that will to power through.
Yes. And
Yes.
however it is, because yes, if getting into that feminine flow and people talk all the time about the riptides, right? You swim against them and you're going to exhaust yourself and drown. But if you just float with them, you're going to end up someplace safe.
Yeah, or just go along beside them. You basically go not in the counterintuitive way, but it's the way that works. Just swim this way, parallel to the shore.
Sometimes that's part of the path, is going backwards a little bit, because maybe you didn't fully get everything you were supposed to get from that.
Well, if you've ever studied spiral dynamics, which is something I just took a course and it was very interesting. The idea is that we go through spirals and different movements in history, and then they repeat, and it just keeps going and keeps going. And so in that sense, maybe you're not moving backwards, you're just going into a new spiral.
That's it. Segment. Yes, I had somebody tell me that. It's like, you may feel like you're coming back around, but you're always a little bit higher up.
There's a little bit more consciousness, I believe, as we go through these iterations of our patterns, and as we look at those things that we're working in our lives to heal, they will come back up. But if you compare, say, for example, those moments when I feel lonely these days are so very different from those moments when I was in my 20s, that it just felt like it was heart-wrenching and so hard, right? And now it's like, I feel lonely. Okay, well, let's go read our favorite book, and it's just like, okay, I feel lonely. And I feel lonely. What are my choices here? I can call someone, I can read a book, I could do something that makes me happy. Whereas before it would be something back in my 20s that could even be paralyzing. That, I could sob myself to sleep over that at that time. And there's where I think we begin to get wisdom, right? As we grow and as we spend more years on the planet. Notice I didn't say as we age, but as we spend more years on the planet,
becoming wiser,
we become wise. There is that trajectory of wisdom that happens. And we also have more experience. And so it's kind of like, if you have a bowl of popcorn and there are only 2 kernels in it, it really is hard, if one of those kernels is burned, not to focus on the burned kernel. But when you get a whole big bowl of popcorn, full of popcorn, and there's, say, maybe 10 burned pieces, you don't think anything of it, right? Because the rest of the bowl is great. Right. And I think that is something that happens with the wisdom and the maturity of spending more time on the planet, is that we begin to see, it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
It really isn't.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
Losing the job or losing the relationship or losing someone who passes away. It's not the end of life, the end of the world. It's there are going to be those pieces of burned popcorn in that big bowl. And again, we choose how much time we spend in the weeds, or how much time we spend saying, that's burned popcorn. Oh, it's so horrible, blah, 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 We choose how much time we spend there. And that's the place that we have some measure of control, is in our choices there, because we can't change the things that life sends us. Sometimes, someone dies, the relationship ends, the business goes down, whatever, the dog gets run over, whatever happens, we can't change that, but we can look at it in the context of in light of a bigger context, and choose to move through it instead of suppressing it.
Yes.
And when we suppress it, what happens.
Always there. Coming out sideways.
That kind of takes us back to the beginning, because that's where I was saying, I really think everybody does have their pain and their hurt and their hard times. Maybe some people have it tougher than others. Yes, we could say that, but I think what happens to so many people is it's stuffed and stuffed and stuffed and stuffed, and then they become like an automaton. Like a zombie, just cold and hardened.
And it's a lot of times it's what they've been taught.
Detached. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, my ex-husband would always tell my daughter not to cry, and still she has a difficult time, when she needs to cry. And I said, honey, it's just normal to cry. I'll
Yeah,
cry
let
with
that
you. It's
out.
good to cry. Let it out.
Yeah.
When his father died, I was actually the one crying a few days before because I could feel it coming.
Mhm.
And then he was outside just pruning the bushes. That's what he did to deal with it. So that doesn't work. It gets stuck.
Yeah.
We've got to feel those feelings and identify them as best we can and seek out support from people who understand, because they've been there.
Yeah.
Right? Not
Yeah.
sympathy. We don't want sympathy.
No.
People will say, oh, I'm so sorry that all that stuff happened to you when you were a kid. Well, no, I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want your pity, and I don't want your sympathy.
Yeah.
I
That's
want
not healing it. That's wallowing in it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that would be that I'm a victim. And the truth of the matter is that on some level, my soul chose those experiences to grow and learn.
Yes.
And so did their souls.
Yes.
All in
it's funny.
A spiritual contract.
Just had a whole conversation about that last week in my group, about that idea that, oftentimes they volunteered to be that catalyst for you to learn and grow. And in the process, they can often lose their light because they forget. And so you've got to be that one to be stronger and forgive. And if not for them, but for you to not hold that resentment.
Yeah, people sign up to be the ass wipes. And a nice way to forgive my French here. I'm gonna just let it, hopefully I haven't.
It's usually me, so yeah.
Hopefully I haven't offended anybody too much. Shit was always the word my mother would say as her curse word, but it would always be under, Southern lady, so it'd be like shit under her whisper, But ass wipes, people do get a sacred contract. Like, they love us so much, they show up to be a Judas. Yes. To be the person who betrays us.
Yes.
To be the person who causes us pain that then causes growth. Yeah. And I do very much believe that. And when we can realize that person really, their soul, on a soul level, not a conscious level, they love me so much that they were going to put me through this fire so that I could become the beautiful diamond I am, right? And that's how much their soul loved me.
Yeah.
Is they showed up to be the contrast. They showed up to be the heart.
Children's book, The Little Soul in the Sun, I think is what it's called. And it's just it's a kid's book. It's like a beautiful, but it's to this point, and it's so beautiful, and it's very simple, but it's just so touching. I think everybody should read it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, whether you're a child or
I just wrote my first children's book, Kaluwa.
Congratulations.
It's funny you should mention that. Yeah, I did. I'm still working on it, but I definitely want people to come, and there's an ebook on my website that they can get for free, which is one of my books. It's How to Overcome Overwhelm in 7 Easy Steps. And I know you're going to give them the website for that.
Yes, but go ahead and say it. It will be in the It will be in our information.
You just go to Spirited, SPIRITED -solutions.com. So make sure you put a dash, not an underscore. SPIRITED -solutions with an S on the end.com. And you can get your free copy of the ebook. And also you'll get some invitations to some neat workshops I'll be doing, some healing opportunities, some things that are free. And I like to pass on savings too when I find out about something interesting and I can get you some cheaper tickets to attend something. I like to share that info too. And I'll also be sharing about the children's book at some point in my newsletter. My email newsletter does not come out frequently, you all, just so you know. I'm not going to be sending you emails every day. That drives me crazy. But you can get the free book, and you'll also find out about those other things as I send them out to the email list there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, this one is chock full of goodies, lots of wisdom. And yes, thank you so much, Barnsley, for being willing to share with us. I so appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, Kaluwa, and I appreciate what you're doing to allow people to have these conversations and to hear these conversations, because so often we look at the outside of a person and we just see what we interpret as success, and oh, they're so happy and everything's so perfect in their life. And truthfully, if we spend some time with them, we find out, and we delve, we excavate, we find out that not everything has been perfect, but it's all in the plan. It was all just as it needs to be.
And it's very twofold here, because it's all about getting people out of the shame, you know, that they might be feeling for being less than perfect, and, you know, realizing, oh, nobody's got it together, right? Like together, you know, everybody is just, you know, learning and growing. And that's what that's what we're here to do. But on the other hand, too, for the people who come to speak, it's a chance for them to share their voice.
Exactly.
And that's powerful too.
And to share it. And my hope is that it has inspired those listening to ask some questions of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, we've given you some questions throughout here that you could use, and also some exercises that you could use, like the future you exercise that you could do yourself, and have that continue the learning and growth from the podcast. You know, I have an affirmation I feel like I want to give as a final word about being perfect/imperfect. And it is, I, Barnsley, am perfectly imperfect and lovable just as I am. I, Barnsley, am perfectly imperfect and lovable just as I am. And I would share that affirmation to everybody. It's a really powerful one to do, and to realize that you are perfect just as you are, with all your imperfections. And in fact, that gives other people permission to also be imperfectly perfect.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Okay, that sounds like the perfect time to say goodbye. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnsley Brown. You guys heard where to connect with her. I will also put that information, you know, in our description. But Dr. Barnsley, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kaluwa. And I will mention something else I forgot. Okay. And that is, those who feel moved or would like to know more about the coaching program I mentioned, you can feel free to reach out to me using the website spirited-solutions.com. Just email me there. And I do offer at this point, I offer a complimentary 25-minute session called the Get Results Now session. There is homework to do before it. So when you email me, I will send you a little prep thing you need to do. It takes only 11 minutes, but I want you to get the most out of our short time together. So you'll have a little bit of pre-work to do, and then we'll set you up for your session. So I would also offer that to your folks, Kaluwa, who are listening, who are big-hearted, spiritual, and really want to make that powerful, positive impact in the world and be prosperous. Perfect. Doing their calling.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much. And for those of you who want to also see what's happening at Imperfectly Amazing, go ahead, check out the linktr.ee/Kaluwa. There's always something going on there. And thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have taken something away. Go ahead and share this with someone you think could benefit. Put your comments out there for us all. You know, the more you share, the more that you inspire others. So,
amen.
Yeah, thank you so much. And remember, keep pushing through, because there is a spark in you.